Is there one thing that can transform your life and cause you to stop engaging in destructive behaviors, thought patterns, sinful behaviors, and thought patterns? And I believe there is one thing that's at the core of why you do those things. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast discussing meditation, the near death experience, spiritually inspirational and transformative experiences. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, author and teacher Jay Spillers. Please do like and subscribe if you'd like to have a free meditation coaching session with me. Sign up in the description. I was watching a show. No, actually, it was really a commercial. I was watching a commercial that comes on, and maybe you've seen it too. The guy's talking about, I struggled with the P word for decades and it started when I was young. And I started to realize that that was only one issue that was on the surface, but there's something deeper. And, the video was rolling because I was doing something else, instead of clicking skip. And I didn't get to hear what this thing is that he believes is really at the core of it. But it sort of intrigued my mind. And if I can find that ad, I want to go back and because he's got like a free video just to see what he would say. But I was thinking to myself in my meditation, well, what is the one thing, the core issue when it comes to any sin or destructive behavior, not just porn, but everything? And I thought, well, I know what it is. The issue is a connection to love. That when you don't love God, love other people, someone else, or yourself, well, it's easy to fall into emotions that will drag you into sin, whether it's lust or anger or fear or um, just ignorance, whatever you can think of, pride. It's easy when you lack love to just go into those things. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can have love, but if those things can cause a disconnect, even temporarily, then they can get you to engage in a destructive behavior or a destructive thought pattern or say or do something is kind of dumb, stupid. And it's sort of like it's that moment of insanity for a second, that you sort of forget who you really are. You forget the true essence of how you feel. And this totally makes sense because if you're feeling love towards another person and you genuinely feel connected to the other person, how tempted are you to just go up and smack them? Probably not very likely. Hopefully you wouldn't go smack someone anyway, you know. But the feeling is different because it's like when you feel connected in love to someone, the love connection, how you respond to them, what you say to them, what you think of them, what you would do to them is radically different. Now you may be in a situation where anger sort of wells up in you, and it's more of a struggle not to say or do something stupid. There's a temptation at some level to like, oh, I'm really angry at this person, even though I do love them. I'd like to smack them. I'd like to say something cruel to them. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's much more of a temptation to engage in these destructive emotions, these emotions that draw us into sin or into destruction. when it can get us severed from that connection, even temporarily, from love. And that's where it all comes down to is staying connected to love, first having the love well up inside you, and then staying connected. That's what would make all the difference. And the thing is that if you have the love and you're connected, sin becomes virtually impossible at that point. And I think that's really what sin is. Sin is the essence of a lack of love, a lack of connection to love. It's it draws us from love. And I think that's where all the difference lies. And you have to have love in all three areas because if you don't have it in one of the three, you're likely to engage in destructive behavior towards the thing you don't have love for. But then a lot of times it'll sneak in and sort of sever love in other areas of your life where you do have love. So to have the full balance, you need to have love for all three. And when you talk about, well, how do I love God? I don't see God. I don't generally hear an audible voice. The ability to love God comes in the reflection. You have to reflect on God, what God is to you, what God does for you, what God means in your life. You have to see the relationship that God has for you. You have to pause and become connected in tuned with God. It's kind of like in meditation. We're breathing all the time. We're breathing 24/7. I'm breathing, and most of the time I don't give it a thought. Breath doesn't really have much significance to me. But when you go into meditation and you start to focus on your breath in and out, and you start to connect with your breath, the relationship that you have towards your breath is profoundly changed in the moment while you're noticing it. But then as you do that for a while, as you go into breath awareness and meditation, you start to appreciate breath even outside of meditation. You might catch yourself taking a few breaths and noticing a few deep breaths or just noticing your breath, and you become more appreciative of your breath. Well, it's kind of the same way with God, that you need to take the time to reflect on God like you would your breath, to take on the essence within your being and notice it. And this is where meditation again can be helpful because you can focus on what is my connection to God? What does God mean to me? What does God mean to the world? How does God provide greater meaning and purpose in my life? And you can reflect on these things in meditation. You can also affirm who and what God is to you. You can focus on where God has moved in your life. So you can affirm and reflect in meditation on God, and you can allow yourself to just sit in the presence of God, commune, and be one with God. Because here's the reality is that God is not just an entity out here. He's an entity within our being, and we are a part of that being. God is light, but we are light too, and we are part of the greater light. It's sort of like if God was an ocean, we're a drop with the essence of the ocean. And when you start to understand that you're connected to it, something larger than yourself. But this thing larger than yourself makes everything about you possible. Everything sort of changes. It's sort of like you become part of the team, so to speak, part of the family, part of something larger than yourself. But it's not just larger than yourself that's out here, it's larger than yourself, and I'm a part of it. If this is sort of making sense, and you start to reflect in meditation on who am I and who is God, and who am I in God and to God. And it can make profound differences. And when that happens, it connects you to God in love.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
So that's one area that, people might wonder, like, well, how do I love God? Well, it's in the reflection. And of course, meditation isn't the only place where you can reflect and affirm. You can also do it in things like prayer and reading scripture, inspirational things related to God. Those can be helpful as well. The thing that I love about meditation, though, is that you're in this highly relaxed state, and you're able to sort of override the conscious mind, which is like, maybe kind of just like, oh yeah, that's true. Or even maybe even kind of fighting it. Like, we sing all these things about God, but it's like, what does it really mean to me? It sort of overrides that. And then you're just sort of at a deeper conscious level, at a deeper level of awareness, sort of connecting with God. And then that profound love is developed. So, I mean, I think that's why meditation is so important. And that was another thing too, besides prayer and reading the scriptures and meditating. You can also do it through singing too. That's why a lot of churches and religious services incorporate the principle of music, because there's all these things. There's meditation, there's prayer, there's the reading of scripture and inspirational words, and then there's music. And that's why these things are important, to connect us to something greater than ourselves that we're really a part of, but that it's greater than ourselves. So that's one aspect, is to love God and then to love other people. And this also can be done by reflecting upon the other person and what this person means to you and how you feel for this person. And I found that one of the corridors towards love is to start with developing empathy and compassion. Because when you can empathize with someone and have compassion for them, the love just naturally flows in. That love follows the compassion and the empathy. It's like, if you're thinking about a war, you're thinking about harming another person, that or another group of people. If you can empathize and have compassion for them, there's much less of a desire to want to drop a bomb on them. There's much less of a desire to want to shoot them. I mean, this is kind of like putting it at a really basic level, and that's part of the reasons, like, we have so many conflicts around the world, is that, do you think the Israeli leadership has a lot of empathy and compassion for the people of Gaza? I'm thinking, I mean, they might say that on the news, they do, but do you deep down in your heart think, oh, I bet you they've got a lot of empathy and compassion for them? It's like, I don't really think so. It's like when you're not just bombing them, but you're even cutting off any aid. It's like, oh. And it's the same story the world around. You look at, there's conflicts in the Sudan, there's conflicts in Syria. It's like, do you think that ISIS in Syria feels a deep compassion or empathy for the people that they're sort of steamrolling and slaughtering. It's like, well, I don't think so. So empathy and compassion are the corridor to love. And this brings up an interesting point. People often say, well, love is more than an emotion. Love is more than a feeling. And yes, it absolutely is more than a feeling or an emotion. But the feeling and the emotion is what helps to connect you to the love. Because if you don't have the feeling and emotion with it, there's no power in it. It's like, think about when a marriage breaks up and they either say, I fell out of love or I don't feel it. It's like, if you don't feel the love for your spouse, it's way easier to get divorced. So it's like we sort of are very dismissive of the feeling of love, the emotion that's there with love, and how important it is, because the feeling and the emotion are what connect us to the larger principle of love, because love is more than emotion. But when you have the emotion, it's easier to connect into a larger picture of love. It's easier to live out love in a larger context. But it starts with the feeling, and the feeling has to connect you in. So, just be careful about those that are like, well, love is not a feeling. It's like, well, love is a feeling. Love is more than a feeling, but it is, and it starts with a feeling. So that's critical. And you know, let's look at the issue that this commercial was talking about. On YouTube, it was an ad. Is it what really causes people to go into pornography in the first place? To look at it and take it in on a regular basis. Well, the lust, of course, but the lust is able to just overwhelm the person because they don't have a connection to the person in the picture. They don't feel any love towards that other person. They don't feel any empathy or compassion. And, that's one of the things about um, images, is that sometimes an image where you don't have any connection to the person, it's easier for something negative to flow in, lust or something like that, and it can work the other way too, that images can be a powerful thing in a positive sense too, that if you see a picture of a starving child and an emotion of compassion wells up, even though you don't know the child, well, that can be a positive thing. But images can create certain emotions in us. And like in the case of pornography, if it's creating a lustful feeling and I have no connection to this person, well, then it's easier just to keep going with it. And, having the person in the picture, you might not say it this bluntly, doesn't mean a darn thing to you. It's an image that envelops lust in you. And I mean, part of it too might be that, you feel like, well, if I can't have the person, if I can't have this, I feel like I'm missing out. And that's where the lust comes in, like, take it in so you don't miss out on something enjoyable or pleasurable or whatever. Have you ever wanted to learn to meditate? Check out my book, Meditation for Everyone: How to Quickly Have a More Peaceful, Mindful, and Fulfilled Life, and support this channel. With Meditation for Everyone, you will learn to quickly and easily meditate, relieve stress and anxiety, alleviate depression, and have more joy, peace, and relaxation. What you will learn: mindfulness, The Art of Stillness, step by step on how to meditate, strategies for overcoming challenges to meditation, and much more. D. Mason said this is a nice meditation book, even for those already meditating. I agree with the statements that it will help to have a more peaceful, mindful, and fulfilled life. 4.6-star rating, available on Amazon. Part of it, part of something in meditation is to sit with our emotions too, including the negative ones. And sometimes when you just sit there with your emotion, you sort of defang it. You sort of take the power away. That if you were able to see an image, and you've probably seen them before, and reflect within yourself, meditate within yourself, and say, okay, I saw this image for whatever reason. This image makes me feel like, and just in a calm, relaxed state, say, okay, it makes me feel this way. And just be blunt. Okay, I'm looking at this image. It makes me feel horny. That's an honest response. Okay. I see another image, maybe it's not a pornographic image, of someone harming another person. It makes me feel angry. And just to allow yourself to feel those emotions, but in sort of a detached, non-judgmental way. And when you start to just sort of evaluate the emotions, then it's sort of like the power's gone, because I heard a meditation teacher was talking about he lived with anxiety. So what he started to do is in his meditations, he would just sit with anxiety. It's like, okay, I feel anxiety, and maybe it's about this, that, or the other thing. And anxiety feels like this, and just sort of looking at a detached, non-judgmental way. And then he started to notice that it takes the power of the anxiety away. So, and it's crazy because when you can just sort of detach and in a non-judgmental way observe the feeling, whether it's lust, whether it's anger, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fear, it sort of helps to take the power away. And that's part of the thing about that too, is that when the power's gone, then it's like, okay, well, I'm sort of in a neutral place now. I don't really feel the anxiety anymore. I don't feel the lust as strongly anymore. I don't feel the anger as strongly anymore. Why don't I put in a positive feeling, a feeling that connects me to love for the situation or the person? That connects me to compassion, that connects me to feelings of peace and kindness. And then you go to sort of the next level, going from negative emotion to a neutral place to one of love and positivity, and see how you can do that in meditation. So I think the corridor of love is critical, and just being able to love yourself too, because you start to love other people, you start to feel empathy and compassion for others. But the next step is and really it should be your first step, but for a lot of us it's more difficult, is to start to feel empathy and compassion for ourselves. If you can just sort of empathize with yourself just a little bit and let it grow, once you love yourself, once you start to have compassion for yourself, it's easier to do it for other people. And when you lack love for yourself, it's more difficult to have it for other people. So these three areas are important, and you need to feel the connection of love. You need to be able to have that feeling within your being. And the corridor is like I said, compassion and empathy. And just having a peace about who you are and where you are and letting judgments go, because like if you struggled with something like pornography, to just accept that you had those feelings, accept that you viewed this material or whatever for years and years in your life in a non-judgmental way, and accept that, you know, maybe part of it was I just had these feelings within me. And sometimes it's just, you know, a certain biological response that causes the lust, and just saying, okay, it was a biological response that caused the lust. And then you start to evaluate that and start to look at it non-judgmentally. You have acceptance for where you were in that moment. And with acceptance comes peace. And then once you have that in place, then you can start to develop empathy and compassion for those that you saw, but then empathy and compassion for yourself as well. And then it's like everything starts to change, and it's through this connection of love that everything changes. So that is the answer that I would give, the deeper seated issue to all areas of sin, all areas of destructive behavior and thought, word, or deed, goes back to a place where love is not present, or there's a disconnect, even a temporary disconnect from the love that we have. And when you can have the love for yourself, love for others, love for God, and when you can stay connected to it, it puts you in a place of being authentically who you were meant to be, the authentic self that we're always talking about. Because the connection between love and authenticity is a strong one. Being connected in love helps you to live authentically. And to live authentically requires that you operate from a place of love. So that's the only thing I was going to talk about today, but thank you for joining me. Please do like and subscribe to the channel and share everywhere. Thank you. I better get him in the shower. Okay.